The data will fail.
Right.
Yeah, it will.
Integrity is all that matters.
Right.
Data integrity. How do we keep it in a location where we know with certainty that when we need it, it will be there?
From Toronto, PHANTA Media presents the Not So Corporate Podcast.
Hello. How you doing? I'm Mark Drager, the host of the Not So Corporate Podcast. I'm joined here in studio today for a very special roundtable conversation. I'm joined with Kyle Wilson. Hey, Kyle.
Hey.
And very brief. Hey. And
time is money.
Across from me, the man who just spoke, time is money, Mr. Louis Vizanios.
Hey, y'all.
And and back for a very special conversation, Maneesh Malhotra.
Hey.
How's it? Why is everybody taking my hey?
I don't know. Is that wait, did you appropriate that from Fat Albert?
No, I appropriated. I listened to a podcast where someone says hello. Oh yeah. I say 3 hellos. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's your thing.
I just took his
like,
and then
you
just
took
added,
his thing.
Yeah,
and then
no,
just
this
added
copyright.
and then just added a third.
And you took it from Fat Albert.
I've never seen or have ever been associated with
Hey, that guy, right?
Yeah, of course.
What do you mean, of course? We're too young to have watched that.
Are you kidding me?
Fat Albert is from what? Mumford & Sons?
It's Bill Cosby. It's his show.
Mumford and Sons.
Is it not Mumford & Sons? What's this? And Sons. Mumford & Sons is a group.
Sanford?
Right?
You're
Sanford
thinking
and
of
Sons.
Sanford and Sons?
Is that the same thing as Fat Albert?
I don't know. I don't think
References are very old.
All I know is Bill Cosby did something to that.
These references
Ahoy,
are... Okay, now I know that one, but...
That's Popeye the Sailor Man.
Also,
Right?
there's
No,
plenty of
it's
things
not.
that you weren't
Ahoy
alive
Hoy
for that you still know.
Ahoy is not Popeye the Sailor Man. Ahoy
No, it's
Ahoy
That or,
is what Alexander Graham Bell wanted people to answer the phone saying, because hi didn't come into existence yet, and hello was not a popular option because I don't think it had come around yet.
Really?
So when he
probably
answered
greetings or something.
when you answered the phone, his recommendation was ahoy. That's how he wanted, like a nautical
Ahoy,
term.
like a nautical.
It's like Uber.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
That's
like
hilarious.
ahoy.
I think I'm going to answer the phone with ahoy from now on.
It'd be great.
I love the best answering the phone ever, right? Now this is going to be an old reference too. Do you remember Boys in the Hood?
Yeah?
Right, he answers the phone. He goes, "Who dis?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Who dis?"
Who
And
dis?
she's like, "Who dis? Who dis? This is your mama."
There was no
And he's-
caller ID back
He's
in
trying to be all cool. Man, I love that movie. That movie was so sad. I was
It's
a
a
little
sad
boy when I
movie,
saw it. I think I was
yeah.
probably 12 or 13, probably too young.
You
to
were
witness-
too young.
Too young to witness a man
Yeah,
get shot
man.
in the streets, but yeah, very sad. We were talking earlier about sad movies. We were talking about Empire of the Sun
That's right. Yeah.
and how that terrified
downer.
me. That terrified me
downer.
because I think I was probably 6 or 7 when I saw it, and I was afraid of losing my mom at a David Copperfield event. But anyway, wow.
Like the Prestige
That has
mixed
so many
with
layers to it.
Empire.
Yeah. So if anyway, let's move on.
Speaking of layers,
Oh, segue.
Photoshop. What are we talking about today?
Like I don't know, like platters.
Oh, okay.
Layers of
Oh, good reference. It'll probably be cut out, Louis. But anyway, great transition. Today we're going to have a very special conversation, a roundtable conversation around data management or data management, depending on how you want to say it. But with the increase of moving from SD to HD and HD to 2K and 2K to 4K and 4K to 6K, gosh, I mean, data is huge, and back in the old days when you used to let's go back really far. You used to have to put things on tape and bake them and things like that. But
We used to do masters on the DV cam tapes.
yeah, and you have to keep them dry, and you have to stretch the tapes out and all that stuff. But the move to digital, obviously data management is huge. Everyone who's operating has data management processes. I mean, you cannot operate without some level, even if it's informal, some level of data management process. But what we want to talk about today is just like what? I guess we're going to get into it. Kyle, you're the one with sheets of paper in front of you.
Oh yeah, lots of sheets.
But we're going to talk about data management because here in the firm, here at PHANTA Media, it's been a topic, something that we've been discussing. Whether you co-locate, meaning whether you put stuff on servers in a separate location, how many areas of redundancy you keep. Is two levels of redundancy enough? Should you go with 3? RAID protecting, all of that fun stuff.
Exactly.
And you know what? It's going to get exciting. It will get exciting. I promise you that, because
It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be.
No way.
It can be exciting.
That's what he
It
said.
doesn't have to
Data
be boring.
management. It doesn't have to be boring.
It's not boring when it's going all the wrong way.
It's definitely not boring. It's very exciting when you're in it. Oh, yeah.
When you're in a data management failure, you mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it now. When you're thinking about a data management process, let's kick off. What are the things that you got to think about? I mean, I guess there's storage size. You got to be able to hold it. Is that the most important thing?
It's not the most important. It's a component, though. Yeah, it's something to think about. I mean, when you're dealing with like big files, because we produce video here.
Sure, like most listeners will. I mean, anyone who's producing video content, no matter the resolution size, is turning through a lot of data.
Right. And yeah, size is an issue here because the source files that we deal with are large to begin with. We're not a bank, we're not an accounting firm. I would say that storage would be less of a concern for them, but the issue of integrity, how good that drive is, how long lasting that drive is, how safe and secure your data is a huge issue for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And so what do you do? Kyle, you've set up data management processes before. What do you do to manage not only, I guess, the size of how much data you have, the integrity of the data? Because I suppose, like, if you look at any kind of process in any kind of company, you're always going to have the raw stuff that you shoot, like the raw data that you just brought in.
Right.
You're going to have your working files, the stuff that you're working on, touching every single day. You have maybe your projects from long-term clients that maybe you're just touching every 6 months or every year. And then you have your deep storage, right? The stuff like is done and you're never going to touch it again. Louis, you just spoke to the importance of integrity, and then integrity at the end of the day is the data there when you need it?
Yeah.
Right? And then there's storage size. So there's just the sheer volume of data we're dealing with. Where do you start in planning out a really good process like this?
You just got to realize that you need it in multiple locations at every step. If it's raw footage, you got to, obviously when it's coming in, you got to make sure, okay, it's going to be in 2 places, somewhere where I'm not going to touch it, and then maybe in my computer. So figuring out those at least 2 touch points at every step will help you figure out, I guess, how many drives you need and where you should how you should set them up at different stages. So,
but not only at 2 different touch points, like even those 2 locations should be RAID protected themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like getting your mind around, at least for me, when I started thinking about this, years ago, it was getting my mind around, not only is it enough to have it in 2 separate locations because someone might delete something accidentally, you have to have those 2 separate locations also RAID protected, so that way should you have should you have a physical damage on one drive and someone accidentally deletes something on another drive, you then have it on the backup's backup.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and not only that, upon capture of that footage, you would also want, ideally, whatever you're capturing with, whether it be compact flash, CFast, SD, and then recording out to an external recorder as well, right? So when you're capturing, you
record on set to 2 different devices. Yeah. You dump from the device to a location that's RAID protected,
right?
And then you go back, but you also go back from the device to the second location, right? Like you never go location to location because you might be copying over issues,
right?
Yeah. So it's true. You got to think.
It's
you
crazy.
Can't just think it should be. It's fine in one place. You always got to think that the places you're putting it could fail.
You want to know something? It's so funny. Yeah. When we started, I think we started like most people. I started just with portable hard drives. Drives were really, really expensive.
They were.
Yeah.
So I was dealing with 240 gigabyte drives and things like that. And we didn't have anything RAID protected. We started the firm in 2006. Yeah. Didn't have anything RAID protected. We were buying all of these drives and enclosures and building stuff ourselves. And I had a staff member initialize a drive by accident. So in the old days with FireWire 400,
Yeah.
when you would plug in a drive, if there was an issue on the drive,
It would, yeah.
the Mac would say, "Do you want to initialize?"
It still does this.
It still does this?
So there are times where we will input an SD card into a reader,
Yeah.
and you'll have to eject that card because it will prompt you for that.
Oh, man.
So you will have to say
So
cancel.
she hit initialize. Cost me $1,200 to have 160 gigs or something recovered, and there were still issues. There were still corrupt issues with the files, but
Yeah.
paid a lot of money. So then a few months later, because we used to have different drives from different manufacturers,
Right.
she plugged the wrong power source
Oh,
into the
yeah,
wrong drive and
that's terrible.
fried everything,
Yeah.
and that was $800. And so I'm sitting there going. So first of all, I let the I let the person go.
Right.
There were some other issues too, but I'm
like,
sitting
what
there
do you do?
going, "Wow, I just spent we were a
Yeah.
tiny firm,
Yeah.
right? Like we weren't doing a lot. We were doing like $150,000 a year in
Yeah.
revenue, and I spent $2,000 in a year on data recovery." And at the time I hired Daniel in, and Daniel was like, "This is asinine. Like,
Yeah.
first of
Yeah.
all, this is ridiculous.
Right.
Secondly, none of the data is backed up. I mean,
No.
we had tape back then, so I could always go back to the
At
tape.
least you had that, right?
Right. Back then we had tape. You go
That's
back to
right.
the tape, you recapture, you start from scratch.
Exactly.
But what I kind of learned at the time was, one, you need to have some kind of working system that is people proof.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Yeah.
like not only so we moved over to enclosures and drives where everything was from the same manufacturer and every power source was interchangeable.
Yeah.
One. So there you go. You're plugging stuff in. You don't have issues with, "Oops, I just fried stuff."
Yep.
Two. You need to have processes and systems in place so people know that they're not allowed to delete anything.
That's
Yes.
right.
Right? Because it's like, "Oops, I accidentally deleted something." Manny, has that ever happened to you? Have you ever maybe deleted something off a desktop, some kind of pet project that
Whoops.
maybe the owner of the firm may have wanted you to do, and you did it?
Let's say it was not a client project. That's
Manny, you deleted one of my projects, man.
Softens the blow.
I know.
Anyway, so
we
you
need time
so
machine backups.
oh, okay. So things go wrong with people, and things get plugged in wrong.
Yeah.
So that's the next layer, and then the third layer is failure, like drives
Physical
fail.
failure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and then that's when you look at RAID protected, and then obviously number of locations on top of that. So you have to have it comes in. It's recorded 2 sources. It
Yes.
comes in and gets copied at least 2 sources. Each of those 2 sources are also RAID protected for
Yeah.
failure.
That's right.
What's next? In like a perfect system,
And okay, we're going with perfect.
have we achieved perfection yet?
Everything on the cloud.
We're getting close. We're getting close.
That's the
Yeah, we'll
perfect.
see. Yeah, we can
A little
take
bit
this in
there.
so many different directions.
Yeah.
'Cause the only reason we're talking about this is because we have so much data, so you can't put it all in the cloud.
Right, like
Like,
we have
it's
companies.
insane.
We have companies all the like. I got one company quote me for co-location, and they quoted me something like $500,000 a year. $500,000 a year that they wanted us to pay. And I first of all, I was like, "Are you crazy? Like, I
Yeah.
could lease an office in a
Yeah.
different building.
Yeah.
I could run dedicated data lines and
Right.
build my own servers."
Right.
Well,
For that price, for like
way
a fraction of that price,
Yeah. That's
right?
crazy.
And you know what's
It's
funny?
insane.
I was downtown at a client meeting, and I see this guy, this kind of shady guy in the elevator with me. He rides up with me to a different location, and he goes to a door that has nothing marked on it, and he opens it like looking at me like I'm looking at him. And I'm like,
You
"Where are you
spy?
going?" And he's looking at me, and he
Yeah.
opens the door and kind of like slides in.
Yeah, yeah.
And I saw behind there, and it was just
Definitely
it was
data.
just a server farm. It was literally it was this tiny little unit.
Yeah.
And all that was sitting in there were servers.
Yeah.
And I guess they don't want anyone to know that it's there, but it must be like them managing their own co-location.
Yeah.
Right? You rent this little tiny office.
Yeah.
You have nothing in there but servers, fire protection, power protection, things like that.
Right.
And it's cheaper than paying a data source.
It
But
is.
anyway, so that's but you know,
Yeah.
someone so we have like over 100 terabytes of information.
But you gotta. The
It's
best way to look at
crazy.
it though is like, how much did you spend to acquire that data? Like your production costs, everything. Like if you're just thinking in terms of like, oh, I don't want to buy another $100 hard drive. That's
That's
like
a good point.
you got to think of that data as like, okay, this is worth $20,000.
Right.
This data
The data
or whatever your production was.
well,
You do.
yeah, in raw format, yes.
Yeah.
In working files, yes. Post delivery,
Okay, yeah, that's a different thing.
it's like how much is the raw data worth?
Well, post delivery it goes down, right? It's kind of like what's the appreciation value of that data now, right?
The depreciation. Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me, the
Depreciation.
depreciation.
Yeah, Mr. Kyle, Mr. MBA knows all about that.
Different depreciation calculations if you want to know.
But like if you're gonna use it again, then it actually will end up making you money in the future. So you have to even account for that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of times clients come to us for changes,
right.
and it's like,
But that's speculative. You can't count on that. You don't know if they're going to do that.
Well, so here's the thing. It's like I'd be interested to know what listeners do out there. And you can drop us an email, feedback at
Definitely
notsocorporatepodcast.com. You can reach us on Twitter. And what I want to know is, have you been able to structure a fee structure in such a way that you have your clients paying to maintain your data? You know, we've looked at it. We work with really, really big organizations. We work with small ones. And one, we kind of run into insurance issues if we're charging clients for data. If you're charging your clients an ongoing fee for maintaining data, then I'm sure you have some kind of service agreement with them, some kind of expectations of service. But
What are the requirements?
But what's that?
If you're going to insure or guarantee, what is it?
I don't think you can insure it. I don't think I don't think insurers will insure data without really strict regulations and legal things.
Right.
And then now you're turning yourself into a data center,
Right.
Like
Kind of, yeah.
like and
You're kinda
things
not
like
in that
that.
business, yeah.
So I'd be interested to know from what people are doing. We haven't figured out a way to monetize it,
Right.
like even for break even. So we charge every project a data fee to manage the data and hold and basically manage the data that's coming in, the new data that's coming
Right.
in. But we talked about those 4 levels, right? You got your data that's just come in that you shot. Of course, we're going to manage that. You got your working
Right.
files. Of course, it's our responsibility. Post delivery, what is our level of responsibility? You know, like what is expected of us? What are you doing out there in the field? You know, like, are you able to charge a monthly fee to manage it? Do you charge the clients one time, drop it on a drive, ship it to them, and say, "Here you go.
Right.
Yeah.
It's your
Yeah.
responsibility now."
If you're
That's what it
smaller,
is.
you'd want to do that.
yeah, if you're a freelancer, then when
don't
I
have
was
space.
freelancing, I would buy a hard drive for the client at
Yeah.
their expense.
Yeah.
Do the project, and at the end of the project, just hand them back the hard drive and be like, "This is your responsibility. If you want to make changes in the future or you want to come back, then you gotta keep this hard drive safe."
You know what? This is an issue.
That's a great little trick.
Yeah, it's not bad.
If the expectations from the clients aren't that you would somehow take care of that for them.
You have to, yeah, you almost have to, like, that's, so, like, this issue haunts me on a personal level. Because when I...
No level of exaggeration.
No.
or
I'm
drama
not
here.
even kidding. Like, I've lost 10 years of my life easy on this issue. Because when I was doing
Hold on, the
freelance...
stress from this has shortened your lifespan by 10 years.
Okay, maybe
Or
that's an
you've-
exaggeration.
Or you've
Oh, like
committed.
digitally, you've lost
Are you sure
10
it's not the
years.
smoking? 'Cause
I would say 5 years,
Okay.
maybe.
He doesn't smoke, man.
I know.
I would say 5 years. But when I was doing wedding videos, aside from what I did day to day, I also handled the video department for another company. And I had at one point like 300 like files of like tapes, DVDs, all kinds of stuff. I had a big box of stuff from this guy. And I gave it to my ex-boss, and I'm like, "Look, man, I don't know what to do with this. I'm moving to Toronto. Here you go." But like, what if that guy, the guy who I was contracting for, what if he calls me up one day and is like, "Yeah, I remember like back in 2005 for like Marie and Kevin, what am I supposed to do?" You know?
So you want to know how? I mean, we're fortunate today that we have the ability to put stuff on tape. You know, we haven't even got to tape yet, but put stuff on tape. Hard drives, buying more hard drives, whatever it is. When I started in 2004, we used to shoot everything on tape, and then we could not keep the data. Right? It was
because you were reusing tapes. Did you ever reuse DVD tapes?
We never reused a tape.
Okay.
Every tape was kept.
Right. Just capture.
I'm
it,
talking
you
about
can't store
working
it.
files,
Yeah.
delivery files.
Yeah.
Like when you're
Would you put delivery files on like, would you black out the tape and master the tape?
No, you make a new master.
No.
He's talking about the
no.
working
So
files,
the
project
original.
files.
But you
I'm
gotta
talking about all
capture
the
all that
working files. So
footage.
the masters.
So I was talking about like remember the print to tape feature where you would export out.
No.
No?
No. So here's the thing. It's like we used. You know what? That's a great idea. We probably should have done that.
Yeah,
but when I
we
was
were
working
doing
for
that.
this franchisor, we produced so much content. They even balked at just the purchase of tapes. Like we went straight to the source. Like we found this industry source. We could buy tapes for like $4.25
We
a
did
tape.
that too.
And we used to go through those 100 boxes of Sony
Yeah.
tapes so
Yeah.
bad. We used to even record. We didn't
Those
record
white boxes with the black.
Yeah. We didn't even record in
Oh, the
DV
long
mode. In DV
Oh.
mode, because you only got 40 minutes on a tape.
Exactly. Don't do DV cam. No.
You got 40 minutes on a tape, but if you went to the
Exactly.
regular mode, you got 60.
That's right.
So, but anyway, so we used to take the finished projects. We would sit on the tapes, never touch them. We
Yeah.
didn't print a tape. We would hold the Final Cut Pro file,
Yeah.
and we would hold any PSDs, any Photoshop files,
Okay.
any music that we had made,
Yeah.
and then we used to go to WMV.
Yeah.
We used to do the
Whoa.
hold on, I'm going back, man.
Okay.
We used to do the 360 version, so 360 pixels size.
Okay.
360 by 240
Yeah.
was for broadband.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, at
Awful.
less than 300k per second.
Wow.
And then the dial-up had to be less than 52k per second, and we would save those two files.
That's it?
Everything else got wiped, and we would burn these collections to DVD.
Oh.
And so we would have these DVD masters.
God.
Where
Yeah,
theoretically, you could recapture the footage if
Yeah.
you could line up the time
Theoretically.
code.
But DVDs don't even last more than 3 years.
No.
No, but see, that was the issue that you run into.
That wasn't my responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
We used to be working on 80 gig hard drives,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
like if
yeah.
you were lucky, you had an 80 gig hard drive.
Yeah, that's true.
And so
What year was this?
2004.
Yeah,
I had more than 80 gigs in 2004. What's
Dude,
happening?
Dude, you did not work for a corporate
okay,
client
yes, sorry,
who
sorry,
went,
yes.
I have to spend how much on
Yes.
drives?
Yeah.
But
They're
you
thinking
have
in terms of doc files.
you have 3 of them.
Yeah.
Isn't 3 hard drives
That's like
enough?
1,000 word files.
And we used to use those laces. You remember those silver laces?
Yeah, yeah.
With
Oh,
the blue,
those
with
are
the blue dot.
Those are the
Very
best.
expensive.
I still have a
Very
few of those.
expensive.
That was my life. Anyway,
Oh.
anyway, we've gone down a rabbit hole now. But so this used to keep you up at night. But the point is, it's
How
making.
are you responsible?
I'm
You're not
surprised that you
responsible.
never
You're not
did-
responsible for that.
No.
I'm not, right? Like,
no.
someone please confirm that.
And who wants to make changes to the wedding video? It's like,
Nobody.
Dude,
Like-
you would be so you wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
with
you
the
want to cut out
request
the bridesmaid that the groom slept with.
That's
Yeah.
the thing, because like
Yeah, but
that's
that's-
the problem with wedding videos is that time as time goes on.
No, that's not the problem with wedding videos. Everything.
Well, everything
is
is
the
wrong
problem
with
with wedding videos.
But yeah, it's always like, well, you know what? 3 years ago, which it's now 10 years after my wedding, this bridesmaid, I'm not friends with her anymore, and this one slept with my husband, and my dad is dead now, so can we put more footage of my dad? Because there's not enough in it.
oh man, who's
that
watching
sounds
this?
terrible. So
I'm really surprised you never made like self-contained MOV files, though.
MOV.
Why would you do
Because you were in a
WMV?
PC
nothing was
environment, you would-
released to MOV.
No.
We went from WMVs.
No, but
to
as a
FLVs.
master, it's just like
You
a,
could do .avi.
basically the
master, but-
ProRes equivalent of like
No.
2007 or whatever.
No, no, go back further, man. No, you didn't do that. You might do a dump to tape,
Yeah.
but we were like in my first year, I did 300 projects.
Oh,
it was
okay,
just
so
like,
you couldn't do
dude, we
that.
did
Yeah.
so much content. I would
Yeah.
go and shoot a conference. I would shoot like a 2-day conference, and I would go through 45 tapes.
Yeah.
Jeez, Lou.
Like alone, and then you'd have to come back and edit that over the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I got it down to
To ingest all that.
yeah.
Oh.
There's like 40 hours of footage
That would
in 2
suck.
weeks.
And there were tricks
you
too,
have,
like
oh man, there were so many tricks
No,
you
you
would learn.
just sit there.
if you had like tape
No,
issues.
no. I had a laptop and I had a desktop, and
Oh,
I would.
But it's got to capture in real time.
Yep.
It does.
And you'd have to hope
Yeah.
that it didn't drop a
That-
frame.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then we would turn off the drop a frame feature.
That's right. You got to
Yeah.
turn that off.
And then but then if you
Steal
later
with
had
it.
to ever recapture anything,
You don't have time code.
You didn't have time code to work
You
from.
didn't, you didn't have the markers too. Like it
No.
wouldn't. What was that feature where it like chopped it up according to
Oh,
the?
I never did that. All I would do is just basically start at second one, and then basically just print a drive, and you just rip through it. And
Wow, man.
you guys don't know how
So
lucky
awful.
you have it.
No.
today.
No, I was
No,
Mark.
I'm talking
I was
the
in the
kids.
trenches, man.
I'm talking the kids.
Okay.
The kids.
Oh yeah, they don't
these
know. They're
days.
just like it's an SD card,
Dude,
whatever.
we're in our early 30s.
Yeah, it's
We're in our early 30s, and we're dinosaurs already.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy the stuff we had to do.
By the time I came out of film school, everything I learned was obsolete.
It's true because
Pretty much.
we came out during that phase when everyone was transitioning
Yeah. To
into
HD.
like
Yeah.
from DV to HD and
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, I was before that. I was at the like we're like the PD 150.
Yeah.
That's what we shot on.
Like
Yeah.
we were
That's
still
amazing.
doing like I was still doing projects on 8mm, like digital 8.
Oh,
High 8. you
oh,
mean.
yeah,
High
high
8.
8, high 8, yeah.
Yeah.
High 8.
Right.
Tape to tape.
Tape to tape.
Yikes.
We had in high school we had a tape to tape editing. We did not have a nonlinear editing. When I went to high school, I graduated in 2001 or 2001. We were on a Sony high 8 tape to tape.
Oh, okay. Tape.
You know, you have your two monitors, and you'd have that shuttle, the jogger,
Okay.
and we had Chiron. You used to have to print, type up your Chiron and decide what you wanted it to look like,
Right.
and then literally hit pause, record, and then hit play on the Chiron, and it would feed it in.
Yeah.
Dude,
That's not so.
it was rough.
And then if you had to make edits, you had to be like right on the
Yeah, you had to go back to the original frame and cut in.
and then cut.
You had to cut in, and you used to have to print time code to the tapes.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah, you had to take a black tape and time code it, right? Like black it out.
no, you wouldn't black it out. You would record all the footage, and then you would go back and print time code in real time to the footage.
There's a time code sync. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, data management.
Yeah.
It's not an issue nowadays. I feel
So funny.
I think I just feel like after we spoke about how it was 10 years ago,
We have it easy.
we have
right?
it good. We have it
Manny, we went to school at the same time.
Well, my big mishap with data management was like the first feature film I did was shot on 35, and it was basically then transferred to tape. So I had like key code and time code,
Right.
and then I was editing it, and I had to keep track of both things because at the end you had to go back and cut your neg. So while we were editing, it took about 3 months to get the first rough cut done, and then my hard drive crashed because they didn't have a budget for any RAID or anything like that. So
So you lost your master. What did they call it? A master edit list?
yeah, well, I lost everything.
Well,
MEL.
Well, your
EDL.
Your EDL.
Yeah.
Your edit
EDL.
decision
Yeah.
list.
Oh,
Yeah.
your edit decision.
Yeah, I lost
Last-
my project, I lost my EDL, and then the only thing that saved us was I had printed out that project back onto tape to show it at a screening for a producer.
Oh.
Yeah.
And basically
So
then
you just did a picture. You just did a basically just over.
But it was digital,
laid.
right? Already.
no, then
I mean,
based on the time code in this
Oh.
in this printed version, I was able to find the shots and
Edit it.
re-edit it. It took me a month to do like 3 months worth of work. But after that, I'm like the most careful. Like I have like 4 backups of everything at home. And
Wow, you do so much at home.
no.
Are you that careful here at work?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, oh, of course. but at home, I keep like backblaze and like I try to keep all my masters on a cloud.
Okay,
storage.
so let's say that you're moving to the world of 4K, 6K. I think most of us are. Right. So, obviously you have a lot of drives that are, you're always copying on set your cards to two different drives. You're bringing them back to the office. Kyle, walk me through basically how, as a company, as a firm, you set up some sort of proper data management strategies, or because you got to take it all the way to deep storage.
To deep storage, yeah.
I mean, unless you're dumping footage, but I can't see why anyone would dump footage.
I don't think you would do that.
We still have stuff from like 2000, like from when we started.
The drives are very shaky, but yes.
Oh, good.
Even the manufacturer doesn't guarantee it beyond like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
In reality.
Well, they have the warranty. Well, yeah, they give it a rating, don't they? Yeah, hours or whatever they call it, maximum.
Yeah. It
forgot
has
what the number
it
is.
does have a life.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Well,
What do you
I think-
trust?
okay, when you're at the edit stage, I think you gotta edit on something that is hopefully mirrored. So you got two sets of data, and then you got to put it somewhere. When you're done working for the end of the day, that's RAID protected as well. So again, you got those 2 points.
And then what about co-location? Right, so there's always the big issue
Ideally,
with total loss, right? Like
Right.
meaning your house burns down,
Right.
A tree falls onto a hydro line and fries everything,
Right.
even if you have USPs or whatnot, just fries everything in the building, or you have a fire or a tornado or something, right?
Well, I guess if you have unlimited internet, you could do like a cloud backup. You could, but it would be very slow and
So
expensive.
here's the thing: like we ran numbers based off
Yeah.
of your upload speed. Like let's average 8 or 10, or even maybe if you have a big package. I don't think in the States they have upload speeds like we do here in Canada. We can usually average anywhere from 6 to 10 megabytes per second upload, kind
Only
of all day
places
long.
that have like Google Fiber, or what's it called?
So,
Yeah.
but let's say you can average 10 or 20 megabytes per second upload. For 8 terabytes of information, it was 95 days to upload, and that's based off of a fairly fast package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? 8 terabytes isn't that much.
Yeah.
95 days for the initial backup. Like, so how like?
And then you make changes to the.
Yeah.
So
what happens
is
then?
Well, it's like incremental.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So you'd only
Okay. Yeah. You don't have
change
to-
certain files.
unless you finish just shooting a
But
project.
like if you're a
on
freelancer,
on
it might be
6K.
okay.
But let's say you just finished shooting a project at 6K, and you got what's realistic? 3 terabytes of information. You can't wait 15 days to back it up, can you?
I think as soon as you ingest, you start the backup, because if the project might take a month, it's done. There you go, done. It's uploaded. But that's like, again, that's a
Yeah.
freelancer thing. I don't think you can do that as a company.
Yeah.
I think it's unsustainable.
I don't think cloud is the way yet. Like I
No,
just
that-
And it's
type's not
there.
big enough.
It's only because of the of the upload speed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty
Like,
much.
like if you can upload a gig a second,
Oh, for
then
sure.
life would be great, right?
Yeah. And it'd
Yeah.
be the best.
Yeah. Like if
true.
everyone had like Google Fiber, and yeah, maybe
So,
So
what
you
do we-
gotta find
So
a-
what do we do?
Well, you got to find a third location off-site.
you need an offsite
Tape
location.
is a good.
Absolutely.
Tape still seems to be pretty good in terms of long-term deep storage.
So what are your total options, right? Like, so you got cloud co-location,
Right.
where basically you're uploading stuff to a server either somewhere.
Yeah.
You have tape backup, so you get a data tape device, and you put
Right.
tapes in, and you can back up 3 terabytes, 6 terabytes, depends on the code or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then you can physically put them in a firebox or
Right.
carry them to 2 locations.
Sure.
Yep.
And then you have hard drives.
You could do hard drives and just
Either do solid state or regular hard drives. Now, solid state I've heard bad things about for long term too.
I don't
Not anymore. Yeah. Now they're very safe comparatively.
The other problem with all this is that there's a lot of stats. Like if you look at the stats for like 2015, 2016, for like what drives to buy, it totally goes against our experiences in what drives are good in terms of brands. So I think that you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Like, well, we've had great experience with Western Digital Blacks, right? Like, we've talked about this, right, Kyle?
Yes, they have great ratings according to my paper here.
Well, like, so like Western Digital years ago, Daniel suggested we go that way.
Yeah, that's smart.
They have their greens, which are a little bit cheaper but still strong. They have their blacks, which
Yeah.
are fantastic. These new ones are, I don't know if they're new.
They got
I
red.
use
They're
Reds.
Reds are good.
I use Reds at home.
The
It's like
Reds.
Enterprise.
So I mean, we have some drives that are going like really heavy
Oh, yeah.
use, and they
Oh, yeah,
seem to
yeah.
hold up, but
Yeah.
nothing's forever, right?
No.
And that's but is tape?
Tape's like
Long
30
term?
years. They say. I don't know who they is, but 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. LTO.
Kept,
Right.
kept
That's
in
what we're talking
proper
about.
conditions.
Okay.
So low humidity, low heat,
Yeah.
no mice.
But you still have to manage it. I don't think like anything that's digital. I think you got to manage. Even
So
if
what
it's
does
30
so what
years.
does this
Yeah,
mean?
that's
So
a good
what does
point.
managing mean?
Like you got to check in on it.
Yeah.
Like when we have stuff that's on hard drives for a year, you gotta spin it up. You gotta check on it because if you don't, it like data degrades if you don't do something with it.
So like
They call it bit rot.
Bit rot. Yeah.
It's a real thing.
this is like
It scares the
this
shit
is
out of everybody.
that's the thing. It's terrifying to me, right?
It's very
My-
scary.
Like think about your my wedding photos are on a USB stick.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that's gonna last.
You want to know how to get around that?
Well, you print them,
it
make
with
a
our wedding.
book or something.
No, that fades over time with
Okay.
oxidation. You want to know
Okay.
how you get around it? You want to know how you
You
get
get
around
10
it?
USB sticks.
You put it on Facebook.
Okay.
My wife uploaded.
Yeah.
My wife
Yeah.
uploaded the entire thing to Facebook, and I was like, "Our friends are gonna hate us." She just uploaded 400 photos years after we did it because they gave it
Yeah.
to us on DVD.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then
and
you
you
lose
might
the
say,
resolution.
Well,
right?
who cares?
Okay.
I do iCloud now.
I'm sure.
Okay,
it
up
somewhere.
iCloud.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
you drop
Yeah.
it somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's sitting
The
there.
whole
and-
thing.
Like I got CR2 files. I got like the
Oh,
raw
gosh.
business.
Dude,
You know?
those are heavy.
Yeah.
Did you put them somewhere?
Yeah.
Like in the cloud?
What Blackblade?
They're in like 3 different places.
Okay.
Yeah. They have
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
Would,
they do.
I would be murdered.
So here's the thing: like we have, like one of our clients is a data backup company, and they're not the people who run the server farms or things like that. They're the ones
No.
who actually write the programs data centers use for backup
And recovery.
and recovery.
So
Yeah, there you go.
wait, so the software that that techie that you go to uses
yes,
to
To
pull
get
that
your
data
stuff.
off.
to make sure that the data is backed up
Oh.
and that there's
Oh,
integrity
okay.
for it. They're the ones who
Okay.
write the software that the data centers use to ensure that the data is backed up and there's integrity to it.
Right.
And their position is that it's very easy to set up servers. It's very easy to get cheap backup, but that people shouldn't in fact pay for backup. They should pay for recovery, because when you go back, when you're like, oh no, I had a data loss, I'm going to go back and recover it. Do you know how much data is actually that you think is sitting on a server is in fact not there? Or when you think you need to go back and do it, and everything in the system saying, hey guys, everything's kosher, don't worry, it's all sitting there, and you go to recover it and you realize that it's not there.
Right.
I don't have stats in front of me. Kyle has the pieces of paper. I don't, but it's more often than you'd think. And so that's the thing that I don't trust about these really cheap data backup places. It's one thing for you to upload upload the files.
Yeah.
It's another thing for them to say, don't worry, we'll take care of everything. But then when you have an issue and you go back and it's not there, or their server's down or something, I'm not trying to just scare everyone, but that is a real thing.
The way you're looking at it, like I just had like this weird light bulb moment where
all I care about is my data there when I need it.
Yeah,
when you need it, yeah.
And you're right.
You're not going to
like,
know when you need it.
It's interesting how like the focus right now of this conversation and kind of the podcast and kind of the conversation at large is backup. But you're right. Maybe we should be concentrating on like better recovery, better ways, because we know it's going to fail. Right?
That's the thing.
It's just a matter of time.
The data will fail.
Right.
Yeah, it will.
All we care, you know what? Not even recovery. Integrity is all that matters.
Right.
Data integrity. How do we keep it in a location where we know with certainty that when we need it, it will be there?
Right.
Wow. We just had a deep
on a
moment.
bit level, on like a bit level, not like programs, because we can talk about this, but like just raw information. I think as long as you manage it, like I said, you spin it up. Things like that disk warrior that we have. Yeah. Like you can always.
So what is disk warrior?
Well, it like checks the integrity of your information on like a bit level. Like it makes sure that all the bits on your drive are organized and where they're supposed to be. Okay. So that when you try and spin it up, it's good. But at a program level, it can be tricky because we ran into this with a project that Louis did where it was all there, but we couldn't work with it in Premiere because some underlying issue. We don't know what it was. So you had to kind of
So you had to install older versions of software? Or are you talking about the Final Cut Pro thing, the project from 5 years ago where we had to update one little thing?
No.
That's usually easier, actually.
Did that on board okay? So we had a client come back to us after 5 years. Yeah. After 5 years and said, hey, this file, we need the guy to cut out one word that he says because it's no longer accurate. Yeah. And my answer to him was, I'll have to see if we can online the files. I know the data's there. I have to see if we're physically able to online the files back in old Final Cut Pro.
That project opened up like butter.
That's
a
hilarious.
Final Cut Pro project.
Oh,
so Final Cut Pro
flawless.
7.
Yeah. The thing opened up, man, and there was no issues with that thing.
5 years. It's crazy to me.
It's so perfect, that program.
Okay. Knock on wood.
I was really surprised. I was like,
so it onlined okay.
It did a better job than,
Well, how old was this other project that someone asked for a change of?
What, like a year, 2 years?
Really?
Yeah, well,
it was just
I guess you did it, a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was just the fact that opening it in the version of the editing program that we used didn't work. It just
opening it in new Premiere would crash it.
I think
the older Premiere that it was made in crashed.
I think the issue is when we use... So, like, it goes into the whole, like, features thing, right? So, like, there's a feature that we use.
That is no longer relevant or changed.
Not that it's not relevant. They still support it. It's still a native plugin to the editing system. But they've altered it. They've changed it. They've, quote-unquote, made it better. But the point is that they've changed it. It's no longer the same version. Of that plugin that was previously there.
Yeah, we run into that because back in the old days, when I used to edit, we used to use these plugins that would allow you to do,
stuff.
Well, it was a font movement.
Yeah,
it was a wipe. It was like a slide in with a motion blur. That would ease in and out. And it was like I used it on everything, and
it was a built-in preset.
No, it was a plugin,
an
aftermarket plugin that would allow you to basically move font from left to right, up to down. It would basically, but it would
work really well.
It would ease in, and the motion blur would ease in.
Right.
And so we'd use that on everything, and then you'd go, and then we would update software, we'd move away, or whatever, and we would forget to go in and grab those plugins, or I would switch computers, laptops in the old days before. It actually time capsuled everything forward.
Right.
You switch computers and you'd be like, oh, you got to go try and find that plugin and bring it with you.
Yeah.
I guess here it's just the expectations of the clients. Like if this client came back to me and said, hey, Mark, we need to take this one word out. And I went back to him and said, listen, the project's 5 years old.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
But
Would
you
that
think-
person be upset?
I don't know.
But okay,
I don't see why they would.
maybe they
5
won't be,
years.
But considering the fact that this request came in at a time where we were trying to lock up new business with this client,
Yeah.
would that have changed anything?
Well, so here's the thing. I have made a commitment internally. It's not in our service agreement. We would never say, hey, we're going to guarantee you
Oh, no,
your data
yeah,
forever.
for sure, for
Secondly, we don't explicitly tell the people that we're going to keep it. It's just, it's an expectation. And whenever clients come to us with a long-term request, they're actually the ones who come to us and say, hey, is this possible?
I noticed that.
Which is
Yeah.
very nice of them.
Absolutely.
They're not saying like, hey, we need this change made. It's, is this possible?
Right.
And if we were to come back to them and say, it's a software issue, the project is so old that the data's there, but we have to rebuild it. Do you want to pay us to rebuild it? Or something like that, then I think we're doing our job. Our job, like internally, our mandate is to try and keep everything forever. But,
Yeah.
What do they say? Shit happens.
Yeah, yeah.
You're saying yes. You're just saying it has a cost associated with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or time cost.
It's hard for us to commit to clients to keep something forever.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
The only thing that I'm aware of that legally is forever. You can write in these things about in perpetuity, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a common thing. But the only thing that I'm aware of that is forever
Yeah.
is, at least in Ontario, in Toronto here, is a cemetery plot. When you buy a cemetery plot, when you are purchasing something that you're going to be interned into, it's something like the contract is something like 1,000 years.
When you pay that fee, you get it for 1,000 years?
Something like that.
Huh.
And it's basically the government's mandated way of saying forever.
Right.
It's like, now in Europe and in other places, you lease plots and they,
it's
like
a little different in
it's-
Quebec, for instance.
It's
Yeah.
different in
Oh.
different places, but
Yeah.
but that's the only thing I'm aware of where they make a conscious effort to basically say like, this is yours.
Yeah.
So Kyle, you got some stuff in front of you. What is this? What are these fancy charts?
Well, it made me feel better because basically we were looking at, you said we use Western Digital. And I went to...
not exclusively.
No,
are we?
I
Are
know.
we exclusive? That's just
no,
my
we're not.
brand of
We're
choice.
not. We have
Yeah.
we have other things in different enclosures, but basically I found these stats from Backblaze because they use a lot of, I guess you would call them consumer level hard drives.
Yeah.
So and they use so many that they can crank out, reliable stats on how long these things actually last.
Because they fail them so fast.
Yeah, they do. They do, and they can figure out what is crap and what isn't. And we're good because I chose the Toshiba because
So walk us through the stats for the audience. So there's basically 4 main brands there.
we got 4 brands. We got Hitachi,
Yeah.
Seagate, Toshiba, and Western Digital. And they have sort of like year-over-year failure rates. But I thought 2016 was the most interesting. They had Hitachi at 1%.
Yeah.
1% failure rate.
Yep.
Okay.
Seagate at 3.48.
3.48.
That's huge.
So 4 out of every 100 drives will
That's
fail.
And
or
that's,
is it a 4%
that's from
chance of failure?
3.48% failure out of 36,000
Okay.
drives.
There you
they
go.
kind of give you a total pool that percentage.
So I guess
That's
you could do
four.
the
That's
math
4
there.
out of
That's
every
pretty-
100
pretty
drives.
bad.
Oh my goodness.
Toshiba is we got 3%, but it's I guess it would be more, wouldn't it? Out of 238 drives, but it's less than Seagate.
They probably adjusted them.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they did. And then
Yeah.
Western Digital is 6.5.
6%.
Yeah.
So and that makes you feel good.
No, not anymore.
Jesus.
When you started reading
That
this
is
off, you
crazy,
said you
man.
felt good.
I felt good about Toshiba because I have some other data that makes it sound great. But I do not feel
But
good
see,
about
that's what I was
Western
saying
Digital.
about database.
But see, okay, you have to understand
6%?
that these numbers are based on the
Consumer
when
version.
these consumer version, and when these drives were actually bought and like when they were manufactured. So 2016, those are 2016 drives. Like for all we know, like the batch they created in 2012 was a great batch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like
I
wine.
think you're rationalizing.
Oh yeah.
I think you're rationalizing purchasing decisions at this point.
No, what I did like was this one that confirmed what my suspicion. My
Wow, he loves data that
Suspicion.
that reconfirms his original beliefs.
we couldn't do anything about it when we purchased this, but basically this one particular unit that we liked.
The Matrox
came
What,
stock.
not Matrox. What?
The Pegasus. Do you want me to go into
Okay,
it?
the Pegasus drives that we have.
Yeah.
The very expensive Pegasus drives that you insisted we buy.
Oh yeah, because the enclosure is great, but it's the unfortunate thing is that they put cheaper hard drives or economical hard drives in it to save money on the the sticker price. And I found out they had a 20% failure rate after
28%?
after 2 years.
One out of every
huge.
four.
Like that's insane.
After 2 years.
2 years. It's
Wow.
the worst by a mile. Like the rest are in like the sevens.
You want to know? I was running this
ones.
recent test, and there's a 100% failure rate over 30 years.
What?
Go back 30 years and buy get a drive from 30 years ago. I bet you it won't work.
Wait, what? You're running
That's
this
why-
test?
That's why libraries still use microfilm.
Yeah.
Microfiche, I think. it is.
Microfilm.
What's microfiche?
Well, a fiche is like a file. So
Oh,
microfile.
I had to do that once. Back for some
At the
reason, when we were
library.
registering our vehicle.
Yeah.
We were registering a company vehicle, and they made me get original copies of our letters of incorporation. I only had digital copies,
Oh,
so I had to go downtown
Yeah.
and request in
Oh.
a copy of the microfiche of the originals, which made no sense to me, because then I had to go to the microfiche
Yeah.
machine, put it in there, and then print off
Yep.
paper copies of it.
But
And I was like, how is this any different
How's it different?
than us printing off? Because I basically
Right.
walked into the
Because
ministry.
the film will last longer than the paper.
That's fine. It was, but my film was a copy of it. But I had to walk into the Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Transportation
Yeah.
with the paper version
Yeah.
that I got from a microfiche, which is exactly the same as the paper version that I was digitally sent.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a waste of time and money. Anyway,
Bizarre.
microfiche. Let's go back to the old days.
Yeah, let's
I
do
did.
that.
Oh, here's a curveball. I found one thing that apparently lasts for 100 years. It's called M-disc, and it's like a disc that is basically has like a stone platter. I'm not kidding.
Whoa.
But it to you it looks like a DVD. You wouldn't
Yeah.
notice the difference.
Yeah.
And
But
you
how do
could-
they know? They couldn't even have tested it.
They do. They
They
know.
run them- or they
well,
run them so much.
Right.
Oh, they run them-
Yeah.
okay,
to
they
know
do-
it lasts 100 years. Yeah.
That's how they test vehicles and stuff.
It's
too.
a DVD, so it holds what
stone
4.7,
DVD.
and then there's also a Blu-ray version that holds 50 gigs, and it's
So it's dual layer.
yeah, it's made of stone, and you burn it, and it lasts. For
Okay, so
100 years.
basic
Wow.
basic takeaways from this conversation is make
Yeah.
sure that you're keeping everything in multiple places. So
Yes.
multiple
Yes.
physical locations, multiple
Yeah.
digital locations.
Yes.
Each digital location should be a backup of itself. It should be RAID protected, and then deep store to tape, multiple tapes in multiple locations.
In multiple locations.
And if you guys think we're crazy,
If you don't
then-
want to invest in it, you can pay someone to do it too.
What?
You can do it on demand. You can take a hard drive to certain places and be like, put this on tape. They'll be like, okay, and they'll do it for you.
how much does that cost?
I don't know.
Why are you only telling me about this now?
Because I gotta get quotes for it. I have a feeling it's a lot
It's
more
a lot more than
if-
just
Yeah.
spending
than
you doing it,
$3,000
depending on how much you have to back up,
$3,000
yeah.
and buying a drive, and then what does a tape cost? Like $30?
30 bucks.
28
yeah.
bucks.
Well,
or something?
50 for the ones you're looking at. In Canadian, we gotta find a direct supplier to get the prices down.
Jesus.
So Kyle, were you with us? Were you on board yet? You've been here for 5 years now. Were you with us when we became like Canada's #1
Yes.
purchaser of those
Well,
enclosures?
just shortly after, I think, because it was
So-
it was mentioned to
So
me.
what was these?
That was really funny.
do you remember the name of the boxes?
Mediasonic.
Mediasonic. So we bought these. We found these Mediasonic enclosures that would hold 2 drives.
Oh my
They were
gosh.
RAID protected.
Yeah.
They were fantastic. We started buying up. For every project. We would buy the 2 hard drives and the enclosure.
Right.
And we got it down to like 320 or something around that. 300, 320 per enclosure.
Right.
And we were going to put every project on its own RAID protected enclosure.
Right.
And we're buying and we're buying and we're buying. And we're buying them in batch. We're buying them in bulk. And then suddenly he's like, oh, we can't, our supplier who we were buying through, the retail supplier,
Yeah.
doesn't have any more. We've bought them all up. I said, go directly to Mediasonic.
Right.
Yeah.
And ask them and tell them we want to buy more because we just want to buy more.
Yeah.
And we weren't buying that many. I don't know. We were buying them in batches of
More than other people. Like
14
you
or
bought a case.
Yeah, we buy them in like 14 or 20s batches, right? Because every project needed its own drive.
Yeah.
And we were buying a lot of hard drives. Anyway, so we're buying up. Finally, we get in a conversation with them, and then they tell us to go back to the retailer, that they would give us a discount and that they would ship it to the retailer just so the retailer could ship it directly to us.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, at a certain point, you were here for this. We sit down and we're like, "Hey, let's look at how much we spent last year on hard drives," and we're like,
A lot.
$18,000.
Yeah.
In 1 year, I was like, hold on, guys, we spent $18,000 on hard drives, and we were getting busier, and we were working on more projects. I was like, this is not sustainable.
It's not.
We can't spend. What are we going to spend $20,000 a year on hard drives? This is crazy. And I know that our clients were technically paying for it through data management fees and this and that. But anyway, that's when we moved to a much smarter, better solution. We moved to servers. We moved to these Pegasus drives. We moved to just better deep storage options. But I guess I share this story to say, in the short term, if you're a small company,
don't cheap out.
Well, buy expensive hard drives, buy good enclosures, pass on the fee to the client, maybe think about giving it to them, because it is a really strong, manageable way. Yep. It's not that big of a deal to sit on, 30, 50, 80 hard drives, that are all in a case or a fireproof box or something, especially if you're one person or two people and you're working at one project at a time and you don't need to be able to share stuff. Right. As soon as you step to servers and, multi-seat access and data management, it gets crazy. But at a certain point, if you're spending 18 or 20 grand a year on hard drives, I mean, it makes more sense to move over to more reasonable things.
Yeah. Buy good hard drives too, because the one thing when you buy good ones is you get a better warranty, and if it goes 2 or 3 years in, they'll just send you a new one. Yeah, that happened a few times.
But now with our older boxes, you used to have to make sure the serial numbers matched up from hard drive to hard drive. So you couldn't replace. I don't think you could replace a brand new drive in an older box. Is that still the case, or
no? It's the warranties for the hard drives.
Okay.
So if a drive goes inside of a box we built, you just pull the hard drive out and say, "Here's the serial on the hard drive,"
and then just
give me a new
just
one.
Rebuilds.
Yeah, they'll just send us a new one.
Cool.
So
anything else you want to go through before we wrap up this part of the conversation, Kyle?
Only do RAID 6 or mirrored.
Whoa, hold on.
Hold on.
You're going to give out a RICO like that. Like, you got to explain more. I mean, there's what? There's RAID 0, 1, 2, 5, 6, 10.
Yeah. 0 is the striped, and people think you get faster read writes, but I don't think you do with 2 drives.
We're getting super technical now. So what's wrong with RAID?
1 is great. That's
5.
Mirrored. 5 because
5 is like when you have 4 drives and blah blah blah. They can crash. And
5 is when let me think. 5 is when 1 can go, but everything's still good, but it's critical. So it's got to rebuild itself, and so you're exposed for that entire period of time.
That the rebuild is happening.
Yeah, which is not good. So if you're at 6, you can have 2 go before you're exposed.
Now you're assuming that you have like 4 drives in it. Like if you're just dealing with something with 2 drives, and then you want to go mirror 1 or RAID 1,
definitely,
right?
Definitely,
It's just mirror.
No.
But is RAID 1? Now the thing that so scared me about certain RAIDs is like you don't want them mirrored so that way they're copying back and forth, right? You want your main drive with your secondary one following, right, or something like you don't want to.
I think it kind of does that itself.
But isn't there a type of RAID where if a corruption takes place, it will automatically copy that corruption over to the other drive, and then it defeats the purpose of being raided?
I don't think it works like that.
No, I don't think so.
No?
Mark, you mentioned when you remember data loss. Does anyone else remember? Because I can count on one hand how many times it's happened to me.
Are you saying that like, yay you, or are you saying...
No, just in terms of like experiences. I try and keep it as low as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we've, in terms of major data loss, those were, I mean, maybe there were 3 occasions, but every occasion that it's happened to me, I've just automatically gone and paid for it. I just paid for data recovery. Like,
it happened once.
Oh, we had it happen on a card on set.
Oh, so that's different. I wish I knew about that service, actually.
We shared this story. We shared this story, but we were shooting this really big project, and a team member, Roland, was searching through the menu halfway through the shoot, and he was just like, he wasn't, when you blast through a menu and you use it every day, you're just like 4 buttons down, and you're just going through it, and there was old footage on the card. The camera assistant hadn't cleared it,
right?
And so we had both new footage and old footage on the card, and he was just not thinking. He just went like down. He went to format, hit format, and that was it. And then we're like, I said, and watched him. I was like, did you just do that? Yeah. And he's like, So we pulled the card. We pulled the card. We lost, and it was this big shoot. We were shooting with a utility, like a huge utility company, a big hydro company, and it was this part of the shoot where we had like 7 hydro trucks and 40 crew, and we were on this shutdown street, and we had all this footage that was huge, and it was all gone. And so we tried all these different data like we downloading. We're looking for all this stuff. Finally, someone mentioned on set, they're like, oh, like if you don't overwrite the data's
That's
still
right.
sitting there.
That's
All you've
right.
lost is the index file.
Exactly.
The data's still there.
That's right.
So I had to wait. It was over a long weekend. Everything was closed. I had to let the client know that there was a potential loss. I had to call the client
Yep.
and say, hey, this big project that you're trusting us for, and this important thing, and this thing that you can never get everyone back on board. And in the meantime, the union started freaking out because it was a unionized environment that we were filming them. Hey, the data may have been lost. And so we went to Panasonic. It was on a Panasonic P2 card.
Yeah.
Went to Panasonic. I said, hey, we've had this issue. They said, yeah, drop it off. I said, what? And so we dropped it off. They rebuilt the index file for us.
Wow.
There's no charge for it.
So amazing.
They just rebuilt the index file for us, and we picked it up a week later, and the card was there, and I was, hallelujah, praise the Lord. I was so happy.
That's so awesome.
Let me tell you, I was so happy. But in the meantime, I'm like, hey, client, we've recovered the data.
Yeah.
And he's just like, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
Eroding confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the shoot went well. Everything went well. We recovered the data with Panasonic. We worked with them one-on-one.
Yeah.
Isn't it great? It's like, yeah. And now I
Should've
didn't tell the
happened.
client that we accidentally deleted it. I said there was an issue with the card.
I know.
But
You can't tell them that.
nope. That was probably the most
Technical
painful.
issue.
That was probably more painful and worrisome than anything else.
The point that I would raise, because Kyle was asking about scenarios, if you're not going to record to an external recorder and you're just recording to whatever your source is, play small, because we had situations where we shot on 32 gig cards, 64 gig cards. You got like a whole wedding on a 64 gig card, and there's data corruption. You lose all the photos, you lose all the video, and then you got to use, like, if it's a case of like you format it, yeah, you could do that, and you could actually do that to a certain degree of levels. Like, it's not just one erase. We had one case where they lost an entire wedding of photos.
Mm-hmm.
They recovered all of those, but they also found the weeks before and some of the weeks before that week.
Yeah, it all stays there.
So
That's
it was all just kind of there, which makes you wonder about how compression works and all this data shit. But
On a Mac, that's not the case.
no,
When we did one
gone.
recovery on one recovery that we did, all the files came back without any extensions on them.
well, that's the other problem.
That
It was
sucks.
there.
Yeah.
Everything was there.
You don't know what's what.
But
No.
there was, and everything was named, but like they weren't really in the right folders, and there was no extensions. And when
No.
you're like if you go back into some of our really old drives, you'll look, you can't open the file, because even when you add the extension to it, it doesn't open.
It won't open.
And you're
It won't
like,
open.
no, and you're like, oh, thanks. I think I got everything back. But, anyway, so wrap it up. Keep everything solid.
Yep.
Help yourself sleep at night by taking it far more seriously than anything else, and try and be honest with your clients, so that way they know potentially that. I mean, if something happens, and something happens, but
I also think
don't let something happen.
I think archive is really important, because like I can understand why you wouldn't want to keep like your PD 150 footage or your
We have tape
your
sitting in the back.
your high 8 stuff.
We still have tapes sitting
there
there.
you go.
But when was the last time we checked them? It's like, although I
Yeah.
sat on my footage for my wedding for 10 years.
Right.
10 years.
That's a
And I
long
went
time,
back,
man.
and I had a few issues capturing the tape, where sometimes like it just won't go past a certain frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's just
You,
keeps stopping.
you need to like press play on the camera and then
Not even that.
press
You turn
record.
everything off. You turn everything off, and you just capture like like you just capture
no
from
time
a
code.
live device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
what
just
I mean.
capture everything,
Yeah.
and you just even when the tape deck stops, you just keep hitting. You just
Yes,
keep hitting
that's
play,
right.
play, and you just get what you can.
It'll
and-
get through those drop
oh
frames.
yeah, the
It'll get through
audio,
it.
the audio
Yeah,
is
the
so
audio
out of
will be
sync.
like- and then you get all that snow and shit. And
But you just do what you need to do,
Yeah.
and you can pick it up, and you can cut around it. But yeah, I mean, I went back 10 years later, and
Yeah.
it's still there.
But what I'm saying is that like you'll have a company that's like, oh wait, but that's HD. That still looks good. Like we could still use that footage. Like, you know what I mean? Like 1920 by 1080 footage can still blend pretty well with like 4K, like to a degree, way better than like DV cam or whatever. So like I think
Yeah, DV cam is pretty noticeably DV
yeah.
cam.
So like I think now that we're in an HD environment and moving forward into SUHD or UHD, I think like clients are still going to be like, oh wait, but that footage is still good, or on our side, hey wait, we could still use that as like stock.
You know what helps us more than anything else? more and when I started the firm, we ask for every project, we ask expected lifespan of the project. How long do you want to be able to use this project before it becomes irrelevant?
Right.
And it used to be around 5 years. People would say 3 to 5 years.
Is it longer now or?
No way.
It's way shorter.
No, we're
6
producing
months.
campaign content.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
We're
like
producing content
6
that
months.
will last 6 months to a year. And it may be, it's going to be repurposed out. It might be leveraged in other capacities. But, the benefit is like projects are being used for a year or two, and that's it.
Yeah.
And just take data as seriously as you can afford to do it.
Well, we do that here each and every day.
So thank you guys so much for the roundtable conversation. It was good. I'm a little bit nervous now, Kyle, about this shaky footage. About this shaky footage that you mentioned.
You know what I'm talking. Those are like how many years old? I can't guarantee that.
Well, tell me what we need to. Don't bring me these. Don't go like, hey, I told you it was shaky. Bring me solutions.
Look, I told you on that
Seems a little off.
podcast.
Solutions, buddy.
I gotta.
I don't want details from anyone. I want solutions.
The hard
They
part
come
is
with a
done.
dollar value.
Bring me answers. So give it all to me on paper. You've been sitting on this stuff for a while now. Give it to me on paper.
Okay, I will.
Yeah. And then I'll be like, what? It costs how much?
He's like, it's not that important. It's fine, it's okay.
Anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining us for the conversation. If you have any feedback, any questions, any comments, let us know. Feedback at notsocorporatepodcast.com. You can reach out to us on Twitter at Phanta Media. You can leave us a comment on YouTube or SoundCloud or wherever it is that you do your listening to these podcasts.
Wait, we on SoundCloud?
We're on SoundCloud.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We have all, this is episode 45, I think we're on. We have all of our episodes up there. Anyway, Kyle, thanks so much for joining us. As always, providing the insight. Mr. MBA brings paper and data. You're fantastic. Louis, thank you as always for producing this episode.
Very welcome.
And Maneesh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
I'm glad we had you in here.
I'm glad I was here.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. What's that? The drives are very shaky. Is that
Revelation.
Is that what you just put? Is that what you just said on tape?
No.